Alrighty, folks, and I am definitely back with you guys. I've hinted, and of course, I've teased, and of course, I hope that you're ready this morning because we have, of course, an exclusive interview here with our very own Prime Minister, Honorable Dickon Mitchell. Of course, also the Minister, Prime Minister, and Minister of Finance and National Security, and the recently appointed Chairman of Caricom. Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Definitely. Thank you so much for coming in. I know you're definitely busy, have a lot on your plate. And of course, we're very much thrilled this morning for this morning's conversation. I mean, how has the carnival been? I mean, I know you have a lot, but of course, I have to, let's break the ice a little bit. How has the carnival been for you?
Quiet. I actually rested. Over
Rested?
Carnival, yes.
Yeah, because we were actually looking to see if we would have seen you on the road, but we did not actually. So it's good to know that you got some rest. And I mean, in the aftermath of Beryl and everything that has been happening, you've been working quite hard and quite. It's been rigorous. So I know.
Yeah, it's been a long July.
Yeah, I know. Prime Minister, without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Of course, recently appointed chairman of Caricom, and of course, that is a very significant title that carries a lot of weight with it, of course. And with that being said, what does this position, of course, mean for you as Prime Minister, and of course for Grenada on a whole?
Right. Well, for me, it means an opportunity to work to continue promoting CARICOM and CARICOM's agenda, continue promoting the integration movement between the CARICOM member states, ensuring that our citizens understand the importance of CARICOM and how it helps us. And in a perfect example of this was the response of CARICOM to Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl.
Right.
So both at a bilateral level where individual countries responded, and then through the regional mechanisms that are part and parcel of the CARICOM apparatus also responded. So when we have things like CDEMA, which is the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, they did a lot of the coordinating work and are still working with us to provide support in terms of our aid and recovery effort for Hurricane Beryl. You see things like the RSS, the regional response,
Yes.
regional security response, which again is here still in Carrico Petit Martin providing support to us. You have Guyana providing support to us via the Defense Force, who are doing both security and actual civil engineering work in Carrico and Petit Martin, helping with Hillsborough Secondary School, government offices, health centers, helping with police officers' homes and so on. So it's a clear indication that CARICOM serves its member states, and so my job really as chairman is to make sure that we remind our citizens of
Yes.
that. And that we work towards addressing some of the challenges for member states from Haiti, for example, where we still need to continue ensuring that the international community lives up to a lot of the commitments that it has made to Haiti and assisting with Haiti, ensuring that we also continue to assist our brothers and sisters there with their transition towards having an elections in 2026. So there are a number of things. From a Grenada perspective, one of the things we intend to lead on is digitization, because Grenada is a lead in the quasi-CARICOM cabinet for ICT. So we've rolled out an ambitious digitization agenda for Grenada and for CARICOM. That's one of the things I intend to champion as we go through. But it's a short period, it's only 6 months, and it's a rotating chairmanship. I will continue to be part of the bureau, which is the incoming, outgoing, and current chair of CARICOM. So certainly for the next 10 months, I will continue to play a leading role within CARICOM.
Definitely, and I'm happy that you mentioned, of course, championing digitization and so forth as chairman. Besides that project that you mentioned, any other projects though?
Well, there are a number of other things that are
Right.
ongoing. I mean, we still have to work on this CSME, which is the Caribbean Single Market and Economy.
Right.
We still have to work on things like, which is crucial, the movement of people within CARICOM, the movement of goods and services. So maritime transportation, air
Right.
transportation, those are issues that are still critical for us. And it's important. Regional security, the crime, gun crime in particular, is a major issue as well, and that's part of what, from a collective effort, we all grappling and facing with with common responses that can be effective across the border, because there's also movement of criminals, movement of guns within CARICOM
Right.
itself. So those are some of the other issues that we have to grapple with.
Definitely, and I think one of the most burning topics, really, in terms of CARICOM, in terms of addressing climate change. I know that is a topic that you've been on focus with. You want to just expound on that a little bit for us?
Well, yes, certainly. I think Hurricane Beryl has demonstrated that
Shown
this
us.
is not this is not a joke.
Yeah.
That we really are on the front lines of the impacts of climate change. So I think from a response perspective, there are a couple of things that we have to focus on. One, how we get our people to be better prepared, how we able to build in resilience, both in terms of our behavior and in terms of our physical infrastructure. So it means we have to take climate change seriously.
Definitely.
And we have to do our own part to minimize the impact on the environment. So it means, for example, from an energy perspective, how do we transition to using less fossil fuels ourselves in Grenada? How do we ensure that we have more use of solar energy? How can we diversify by looking at things like wind, for example? How do we ensure that we just simply consume less, take the lights off if we don't need it? So just from a behavioral point of view, that's one. But obviously trying to transition to renewable energies is critical. It's expensive, but it is something that we committed to doing. How do we ensure that we build in resilience into things like our electricity grid? By looking at where we can put some of it underground as opposed to overhead. How do we ensure where we can't put it overhead, we make sure that the trees are away from the electricity grid so that when the tree falls because of a storm, it doesn't knock down the power lines. How do we champion for climate justice in the international community? And that's critical for us because the truth is the cost of rebuilding Caricom alone is going to run into the hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And that destruction essentially has been caused by a storm, which has broken all records. And it's clear that when these sort of events are happening more frequent, with more ferocity, and clearly with more destruction, we can't be expected to foot the bill alone. And so we're saying that folks who have contributed to this situation need to step up to the plate and actually allow us to have the financing on terms that would allow us to rebuild without putting us back 4 or 5 centuries and without giving us a heavy debt burden, which we've experienced because after Hurricane Ivan, that is precisely what happened. We found ourselves as a country having to borrow large sums of money to rebuild, and we face that risk again. Hopefully, we are working hard to try and minimize borrowings, but it's unlikely that we will be able to do this just from our own local revenue source, given the scale of the destruction. So there are a number of things we are championing, both within Caricom. At COP29 in Baku, we will be looking to do things like a donors conference to try and raise funding from a donation pledge grant perspective to assist us with the rebuilding, because now we have a real case. It's not hypothetical.
Right.
It's happening, a couple of months before the COP to demonstrate to people this is the kind of destruction that we are dealing with. This is the cost of rebuilding. So from the farming community, the fishing community, the mangroves, the infrastructure, the schools, the healthcare, the homes, which is a major, major loss for a lot of people. So right now, for example, at the ICJ, we are working with State in Grenada's case for supporting an opinion from the ICJ on really who should pay for the loss and damage that arises from the climate destruction that we face. So it's a long fight. It's not going to be an easy one, but we have to continue to ensure that we take the challenge to people. And then there are other things, ensuring that we can insure.
Yes.
And so that, for example, you would have had the CRIF. If we didn't have the CRIF, imagine the state
what would have happened,
what would have happened.
Yeah.
So it's expensive, but we have to find financial tools that builds resilience, financial resilience into our ability to respond. And that also has to trickle down to our individual behaviors. So our citizens have to understand that you have to insure your house. There's really no point in working all your life to build a nice home and you can lose it in 45 minutes.
And I think that was one of the biggest lessons for us back in 2004, and even now, how many years after?
Right. So
go ahead.
Yeah, it's something we have to do. We have to also make sure that our business community, for example, can also afford and buy insurance, that our fishermen take they need to buy insurance seriously. So those are some of the things we have to continue ensuring that our individual citizens understand, building to code, building to standards in our homes. Again, there's no point in taking the shortcuts, because the wind, the storms are going to easily expose the consequences of the shortcuts.
It's not going to stop and think.
No. So those are some of the, so it's a multifaceted approach, both at the individual level, at the community level, at the regional and global level.
Right, definitely, and I love the information that you've provided on that. In terms of, I think it was yesterday, I read somehow a news break about the debt clause that Grenada is actually the first country to use in terms of deferring, is it the payments or so forth. Can you just chat a little bit about that with us?
Right, so one of the things that came out of Hurricane Ivan and Grenada's debt restructuring, because we had to borrow a lot to rebuild as a result of Hurricane Ivan, and as a result our ability to sustain the payments of the debt became unsustainable.
Right.
And so you would recall we had a structural adjustment program around 2013, which meant Grenadians had to pay make significant sacrifices in terms of increased taxes and so on that had to be paid. So as part of addressing this entire situation, one of the things that the government then pioneered with Mr. Timothy Antoine, who's now the governor of the central bank, was ensuring that in situations where you are borrowing money from persons who are lending you, you indicate to them that if you have a natural disaster, it means you need to be able to respond to that natural disaster. So the money that you otherwise would have taken to pay them, you are essentially saying to them, whether it's for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, the period I need to recover,
Right.
I'm going to take that money and apply it to the recovery. And therefore, I do not expect you to then trigger and say that I have not paid you and that my loan is in default, and then attempt
Right.
to take actions that would either damage my credit worthiness or my credit or legal action to recover the sum. So in simple terms, that's what the debt suspension clause means. It means if triggered and if we go ahead with it, that we would say, okay, we are going to defer the payments to you over the next 12 months, 24 months, or 36 months. We are going to use that money to assist us with the recovery, and then we will pay you back later on, which means the debt doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It's still there and it's added to the ultimate loan, but it gives us the breathing space to be able to deal
focus
with,
on,
to focus on the recovery and the challenges facing our people.
Right, definitely. Thanks for that elaboration. And of course, Prime Minister, I have to ask you, Spice Mass has concluded. And from most indications, it seems as if it was a success. I've actually read this morning in this morning's news break the growth that the GTA would have pretty much expounded on in terms of in comparison to 2023 and of course 2019. Now, how do you see, of course, the festival's role in terms of economic, recovery and economic development in terms of contributing to that? How do you see Spice Mass' role in that?
Well, I would first start by saying the fact that the event was held and the fact that it was a success so soon on the heels of Hurricane Beryl, I think is testimony to our own resilience. It's also testimony to the economic importance that the festival plays in the economy of Grenada, especially in the middle of the year when the tourist season would have come to an end. So obviously it's an opportunity to extend the tourist season, particularly with the diaspora, because many persons return home. It was a 50th anniversary of independence as well, so we know there were people planning to come home in any event, and I think that might have contributed to it as well. But I'm really heartened by the fact that people didn't allow the storm and the consequences of Hurricane Beryl to, in a sense, prevent them from coming.
Right.
And so that, in a sense, is one of ticking the box from a success point of view. But from an economic, obviously, I mean, whether it's from the costume making, from the music, the DJ, the creativity, the bars, it's a hive of activities that many people benefit from. The hotels, the airlines, the airport. So absolutely, it is critical for economic success, certainly during the middle of the year.
Right.
I think what we have to spend more time on is how we ensure that particularly visitors actually spend more money in Grenada.
When they're here.
When they're here. And I can give countless examples. We need to move beyond just the music and the alcohol.
Yeah.
We need to incorporate food. We need to incorporate artists who do painting, who do creative stuff.
Yes.
Where people can take replicas of the costumes, of the Moko costume or the Shotney costume, where you can have dolls and that sort of thing that have been created, so that when you get to the carnage or so on, you have vendors who are selling art, craft, food, those kinds of things, so that people could actually spend more of the money here. So I think from that perspective, we have to spend a bit more time to ensure that happens. And then I would say the second aspect is we have to also ensure that Carnival is not just an X-rated event or adult event. We need to make sure that there's sufficient activities that are family focused as well, so that we can get people to come out more with their families, both locally, regionally, and internationally. We're safe. We need to promote that. We need to be able to say to people, you can come for Carnival and have family-oriented events.
Yes.
And so the areas that I think we need to focus on, things like steel band, things like the traditional mass, which I think would be more attractive for young kids, and so on, and not just the experience of putting on the costume, but the experience of seeing how it's made, what materials we use, so that people get a full sort of
experience.
In agriculture they say from farm to table. So I would say in Carnival, from costume making to playing the mass.
Yes.
So I think those are some of the areas that we can certainly differentiate ourselves on and spend a bit more time on.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm happy that you mentioned that, because one of the things, even from a personal stance that I've observed, yes, we have the jab and so forth, but in terms of the Wild Indians, the Shotneys, there were not many of them on the streets this year. And of course, we were hoping that this is an eye-opener for us to go back to the drawing table and, of course, bring a bit more of that as it used to be in the years gone by, because these things are, unique to Grenada. Besides the costume itself, you can go anywhere else and pretty much see a fancy mask costume, but when it comes to these sort of things, so I'm happy that you actually mentioned that as, a point of focus. Now, earlier when we started to speak, you did mention in terms of movement of people through Caricom and so forth, but I just want us to delve just a little bit more in that, coming out of the Caricom meeting that was hosted here in Grenada just a couple of weeks ago. Where are we where that is concerned?
Right. So Prime Minister Motley is lead on this issue, on the movement of people. We had originally set by July to get to a point where we could in fact have free movement of persons in certain categories. There's
Right.
still some member states that wish to have some carve-out exceptions. We are working as much as possible with trying to address those issues.
Right.
And sometimes you have to go with what is called a coalition of the willing.
Right.
Those of us who do not see any risk or downsides
Right.
to it, I think need to just simply get onto it and allow our citizens to move. Those who may still have reservations, we need to respect their reservations because each country is sovereign. But from where I sit, honestly, certainly from my leadership within Grenada, I don't think we have anything to fear from the movement of people, from our brothers and sisters. And I laugh because I said, when you have things like Hurricane Beryl, you allow citizens from other countries to come in here
Right.
quite easily to assist us.
Right.
So why then during peacetime or normal times, we can't? And in some instances,
Good point.
we have significant shortage of labor, particularly skilled labor in many areas that we need. And so I would certainly prefer to have persons from within Caricom coming here to assist us,
Right.
rather than from outside of Caricom. But it will be, political will is there, and I think we just need to continue pressing and to make sure that becomes a reality.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And I mean, before we leave, because I know you have a lot on your agenda today, and I don't want to keep you here very long, but before we leave, anything else that you think we need to chit chat about coming out of that meeting?
Out of the Caricom
Yeah.
meeting? Well, I think I just want to emphasize that,
points, yeah.
Yes, I think for me the digitization is critical.
Yeah.
I really do see it as an opportunity to ensure that the Caribbean and Caricom is not left behind. So from things like cybersecurity, which we need to pay attention to.
Right.
One of the things we intend to really do is to sort of focus on this here in Grenada and try and create, from a Caricom perspective, Grenada as the hub to lead on this issue.
Right.
Digital skills for our citizens, we take these things for granted, but there are lots of our citizens, probably tens of thousands, who still lack basic digital skills. Operating a phone successfully, not just to call or make photos, but to use it to actually improve your work productivity, your efficiency, your navigating throughout life, understanding electronic banking, for example, understanding how to send an email, how to receive an email, how to scan and send documents, how to sign documents electronically. So basic skill set that would allow us to operate in the modern world. We need to make sure that we deliberately invest and teach our students, our citizens, those things. But even the higher level skills that would allow you to get employment once you train, those are some of the areas that we focus in on. We intend to launch on the 1st of October, give or take, a program that will train 100 persons in Grenada in cybersecurity. That will lead to certification. It should be a 4.5 month course. And coming out of that, the expectation is that over the next 12 months, the supplier will work to ensure that you can get employment.
Right.
And that employment means you can stay in Grenada. You don't have to leave.
You don't have to leave. Go.
Right. And once you're certified, it gives you the opportunity to earn income that I would say on average is 3 times or 4 times the starting income for persons entering the job market in Grenada. So we're going to do this as a pilot. We believe it will be successful, and then once we're able to demonstrate the success, we intend to fund as well as look for funding from our partners to help really scale this up.
Right.
Remember, we have 2,000 Grenadians, 2,500 Grenadians coming out of school every year.
Yeah.
Right. We have to make sure that we can provide them with the jobs of the future.
And a youthful population
and a
at
youthful
that.
population,
Yeah.
right. And so that would be one of the key focus that we will be having from a digitization perspective. But there are a number of other areas, digital healthcare, for example. Those are some of the areas that we want to make sure that we can work on. And as I said, finally, the issue of crime and safety is a major concern for us throughout Caricom. In fact, we see this as one of our biggest risks. And so making sure, as I said, that we have coordinated responses, that we are looking at best practices, not just focusing on the reaction perspective, but the prevention, making sure that, again, if we address the needs of our young people and we give them the opportunities of hope, the skills they need to function and to earn decent living, that they don't have to
It doesn't get to that
crime
point, yeah.
or social misbehavior. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So there you've had it, folks, from our Prime Minister, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, Minister of Finance and National Security, as well as Chairman of Caricom. Thank you so much, sir, for coming in. Like I mentioned before, definitely a pleasure having you in studio for us. Any final words for people of Grenada?
Well, just one correction. I'm not the Minister of Finance. So
oh, I'm sorry.
I was for a short period of time. The Minister of Finance is the Honorable Dennis
Oh, okay, great.
But no, I want to just speak a little bit about Caricom and Peter Martinique. I want particularly our citizens in Grenada to appreciate the situation there is still very dire. It will require a lot of resources, a lot of time, attention, and effort. And I want us to remain empathetic to their plight, to their challenges. They are brothers and sisters. And I want to obviously just recommit again to all of the persons impacted by Hurricane Beryl that the government will do everything it can to help with the relief and rebuilding of their lives and their livelihoods. And so again, thank you for the support and thank you for having me this morning.
No problem. Thank you very much. And of course, we wish you the best in your role. And of course, get some rest.
Yes,
And sure you stay on top of your vitamins, on a light note. Just wanted to let you know that. But thank you so much. Continue the great job, you and your team, of course, and everyone involved. Folks, that's it right here. Exclusive interview with our Prime Minister, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell. I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break and then, of course, come back on the inside and wrap it up.